Hello, One Great Earth. Today we're going to be looking and focusing on ocean health. It's pretty large in the scope of what we're going to be looking at. So this article that just came out of The Guardian, Oceans Face Triple Threat of Extreme Heat, Oxygen Loss, and Acidification. This goes in hand with what we've been seeing in Alaska with the rivers turning highly acidic and orange. That just came out of The Guardian, Oceans Face. Third of world's ocean surface particularly vulnerable to threats driven by burning fossil fuel and deforestation, new research finds. The world's oceans are facing a triple threat of extreme heating, a loss of oxygen, and acidification, with extreme conditions becoming far more intense in recent decades and placing enormous stress upon the planet's panoply of marine life, new research has found. About a fifth of the world's ocean surface is particularly vulnerable to the three threats hitting at once, spurred by human activities such as the burning of fossil fuels and deforestation, the study found. In the top 300 meters of affected ocean, these compound events now last 3 times longer and are 6 times more intense than they were in the early 1960s, the research states. I read that one more time. These compound events now last 3 times longer and are 6 times more intense than they were in the early 1960s. The study's lead author warned that the world's oceans were already being pushed into an extreme new state because of the climate crisis. The impacts of this have already been seen and felt, said Joel Wong, a researcher at ETH Zurich, who cited the well-known example of the heat blob that has caused the die-off of marine life in the Pacific Ocean. And the Pacific Ocean is huge. Intense extreme events like these are likely to happen again in the future and will disrupt marine ecosystems and fisheries around the world, as we've recently covered with Alaskan snow crabs missing in the billions. In the billions. We believe that Alaskan snow crabs are extinct. It would not be too far-fetched to say that other species that were very plentiful at one point, like passenger pigeons in the billions, are suddenly all gone. What happened to all the passenger pigeons? They were in flocks of billions. They would block out the sun. What happened to them? What happened to all the crabs in the Alaskan Bering Sea? By the billions, they're lost. It's been 2 years now since crab season has been called off because there is just no crabs to find. And they used to be found in the billions. So we're already seeing extreme changes when it comes to habitat loss, because we think of the ocean as this giant, unending resource. But it's really not. There is a lot of different zones that you could say in the seas and the oceans. And you don't want to pop the seas. Intense extreme events like these are likely to happen again in the future and will disrupt marine ecosystems and fisheries around the world. Climate scientists have been alarmed by the relentless onward rise of heat in the ocean, which has hit extraordinary heights in recent months. The heat has been literally off the charts. It's been astonishing to see that Andrea Dutton, a geologist and climate scientist at the University of Wisconsin-Madison, who was not involved in the new research. We can't fully explain the temperatures we are seeing in the Atlantic, for example, which is part of the reason why hurricane season is such a concern this year. It's quite frightening. But on top of the heat, which forces fish and other species to move if they are able to more suitable climates, the oceans are also paying another heavy price for soaking up huge volumes of heat and carbon dioxide from fossil fuel emissions that would otherwise further warm the atmosphere for people on land. The extra carbon dioxide is making seawater more acidic, dissolving the shells of marine creatures as well as starving the ocean of oxygen. Dissolving the shells of marine creatures, and we're missing billions of Alaska snow crabs. We wonder why Red Lobster is going out of business. This is dire news. Such plentiful species, at least they were thought they were plentiful. And then suddenly, climate hits a peak point of their survivability. And then they're gone. Passenger pigeons in the early industrial age made passenger pigeons sick, caused them to die out in great numbers. But they were in the billions, and they thought they were unending. Same as these Alaskan snow crabs. They were in the billions. I thought, they were always going to be around. Suddenly, they're gone. Unable to move to a different area. They're gone. This means that marine life is being squeezed out of places it is able to survive. This paper makes clear that it's happening now, and that these compound threats will push organisms past their tipping points. People have to recognize that oceans have been buffering us from the amount of heat we have been feeling on land as humans, but this hasn't been without consequence. Dutton said that combination of dropping oxygen levels, rising acidification, and soaring ocean heat was also seen at the end of the Permian period about 252 million years ago, when Earth experienced the largest known extinction event in history, known as the Great Dying. If you look at the fossil record, you can see there was the same pattern at the end of the Permian, where 2/3 of marine genera became extinct, she said. We don't have identical conditions to that now, but it's worth pointing out that the environmental changes going on are similar. Oceans aren't just a nice backdrop for your selfies in summer. We rely upon them for our lives. And it's very important to recognize this. And when we talk about massive, massive changes, this is alert level 4 in the Pacific Ocean, or bleaching, coral bleaching, massive coral bleaching all across the equator. And we're seeing massive bleaching even in the Arctic, Antarctic. Very troubling, very, very worrying. But from what we were looking at already, this is spreading throughout the Gulf of Mexico. Now this is just from a few weeks ago. You can see just how extreme it got. It's incredible. And this is just in a few short weeks. Now we go back to the Gulf of Mexico. This is happening quickly, rapidly. This is happening very rapidly. You can see here, alert level 4, south of central Mexico. And it's starting to happen up here, which, as far as I can recall, this area here this used to be a pretty significant area that did not experience coral bleaching, did not experience extreme heat changes. That looks like it might be changing soon. This is very distressing. We can see here alert level 4, alert level 5. I don't think it goes any higher than 5. And we're seeing just massive, massive amounts of coral bleaching all across the planet. Alert level 5. I never knew that they went up that high. But due to the extreme nature of this, we're seeing what is heat stroke to a human being. That is what coral bleaching is. The species, it just releases everything and becomes bone white, and then that's it. If it's not able to retain its shape, I guess you could say, back, it doesn't recover. There's no such thing as an artificial coral reef. Not when factors beyond our modern ways of control make it impossible to save the sea life that we depend on so much as a planet. Let's go back one more time. This is spreading now to the Gulf of Mexico. This is happening quickly. This is happening rapidly. This not good. Not good at all. Maybe no. I mean, there's been no way of stopping this in any other part of the planet where this has been occurring. So why would we expect this to suddenly end right before it reaches the Gulf of Mexico? This is happening now. This is hilarious. I don't know how else to put it. That we're witnessing mass extinction across the planet underwater. Massive loss of coral life and supporting life that depend on coral. Depend on it for shelter, depend on it for food, depend on it for their nurseries. It's not just a bunch of animals running wild everywhere just randomly. There are nurseries, there are, well, it's very, trying to find the right word, not really coming to me. Because what we're seeing here is Gulf of Mexico about to experience probably one of the most extreme events it has ever experienced, probably since a meteor hit it. I mean, this is bad, and this is happening fast, and this is going to consume Florida's coral reef as well. This is very bad. I don't want to be doomsaying. It is not what I want this channel to be about, is to be completely negative and completely doomsaying. That's not what we're doing here. We're just looking at the supporting evidence and drawing a conclusion on it as best as we can. And as we can see here, let me go back one more time. This is happening very quickly, very, very quickly. This is something that I will continue to monitor, but it might take a couple of days for the updates to occur. But what we know now is what's happening across the planet is great losses of underwater species, including coral reefs, as they go bone white and release their livelihood. Algae completely loses itself and is released from the coral, and they starve to death and die, turn bone white. That is what we should be anticipating in the Gulf of Mexico right before you see this extreme heat here. This is going to enter into the Gulf of Mexico, causing massive fluctuations of temperature at sea and ocean. This is not going to get any better, as it looks like much of the planet has been suffering coral bleaching over the last year. But not like this, not in the Gulf of Mexico that I've seen. And as well as this happening up here in the northeastern seaboard. This is especially concerning because this has largely been safe from a lot of these changes of climate. It's coming. It is detrimental to all life on the planet. Now we're seeing this enter into a new area right before hurricane season. This is going to be the worst hurricane season on record. It has to be. Everything points to it becoming the worst, especially with the amount of oxygen loss in the ocean that we're seeing here. It's just going to make things more violent, more heated, and as water heats up, it also expands. So water that is cool once expands, heats up. It is very disturbing what we're seeing here. I'm trying not to be doomsayer. Don't think it like that. I'm sorry if I'm coming across as that. But we're just looking at the best supporting evidence of what we're claiming is happening, what we're knowing is happening. We've been following these stories for quite some time. And as far as I recall, there didn't used to be alert level 5 bleaching alerts available. It used to just go up to level 1. But ever since these latest updates and the variability of coral bleaching, we now have up to alert level 5. It is detrimental to all life on the planet. That much we know. And as this happens, we're going to see mangrove loss across Florida. We're going to see coral loss, because there's no artificial coral. Everything gets lost. It's not that we put a bunch of broken up toilets into the Gulf of Mexico to make an artificial reef. That doesn't happen. It still is affected by the same vulnerabilities as the rest of the coral. And as the temperature changes and sweeps across the Gulf of Mexico, we fear that we're going to see we are going to see one of the worst storm events of the century. This is going to heat up immensely. And then we're going to get massive, 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 massive storms across Florida, across the Gulf of Mexico. Go back one more time. This is happening quickly. It's very overwhelming, especially that what we've seen here, northeastern seaboard. which has been a rather cool body of water over the last year that I've noticed. Let's take a look at the SPC, Storm Prediction Center. We're going to look at the fire weather outlook. So far there's nothing for the 3 to 8 day outlook. That's good. Thunderstorms. Okay. Alright. I believe that is all that I have right now for this topic. I thank you very much for tuning in. Thank you for listening. Thank you for your interest in this topic. Please, if you haven't already, please like the stream and subscribe to the channel. It helps me out immensely. Thank you so much. Take care.